My name is Valerie Kaur, and I'm proud to present to you my sister, Carrie Kelly. Carrie and I spent the morning at Ground Zero today. We stood together before the inverse fountain, the water rushing downwards where the tower once stood, the spray kissing our faces as they read the names to the strings sounding behind them. I stood with Carrie, looking up at her stepfather's photograph, a regal man, a tall man, wearing his cap, his face stoic. He was Lieutenant Joe Levy, who rushed up the flight of stairs to save people as a fireman, while people were rushing down to save their life. He was rushing up to his death. And I sat with her and held her hand like this in the museum that is at Ground Zero as we listened to the recording of Joe's last words, recovered miraculously in the rubble. His last words, "I'll be right up." I wept with you, Carrie, and in the weeping you have given me a gift. Because since watching the towers fall 15 years ago this morning, I never had a chance to grieve. I never had a chance to grieve your father. I never had a chance to grieve the thousands who died on this day, because in that instant, it was my family, it was our communities who were bracing for violence at the hands of our neighbors. I love you as a sister and for the gifts you have given me today.
Sister Valerie, this has been the most unexpected friendship. We didn't plan for this, and so I just want to start by thanking you for being by my side. 15 years ago, my stepdad was the second house to respond. He was down at South Street Seaport. And it was so early on that he saw the second plane hit. And him and his men, they rerouted to respond, so much so that people didn't know where he was. And he ran up 78 flights of stairs, as Valerie mentioned, saving countless lives along the way. And we only know that because we have the great gift of his last words, which were a testament to his commitment in his life, which was to showing up for people. And it wasn't just on that day that he demonstrated that, but it was every day in his life that he was a demonstration to how we show up for one another. And so I've thought about that ever since. How have I shown up for my community? How have we shown up as a community and as a country for one another, especially in the aftermath of 9/11, the shadow of 9/11, as you call it. And so when I met Valerie, not a year ago, like maybe 4 months ago, quite unexpectedly, and I heard her story, I immediately decided to show up for her. And the more that I understood the impact of that shadow on so many lives, at first, I felt shame that I was associated with an event that had caused so much harm, and then I felt anger. Because this is an event that reveals the unshakable in us. Thank you for saying that. The resilience of this community and the kind of love that Valerie and Jackie often talk about, the kind of love that is radical and revolutionary. And so in that moment with Valerie, I decided to be a commitment to reclaiming the story of that day as one of revolutionary love and standing with Valerie in her joy and in her grief the same way in which she's standing with me. I love you.
In 4 days, Carrie will be with me in Phoenix, Arizona, to stand at a site that we are calling the second Ground Zero. Because 15 years ago, on the morning of September 15th, 2011, Balbir Singh Sodhi, a turban Sikh man who was planting flowers in front of his store, who had gone to Costco that morning to find an American flag, who emptied out his wallet to donate money to the victims of 9/11, Carrie's family. On that morning, Balbir Singh Sodhi, who had escaped religious persecution to come to America, who was known for giving out candy to children, on that morning, this big-hearted man who I knew as an uncle was murdered by Frank Roque, a man who called himself a patriot. He was the first of dozens of Sikh and Muslim Americans who were murdered in the aftermath of 9/11, and really the first of thousands, countless numbers of people who have been killed or harmed by hate in the last 15 years. From bullying to racial profiling, from surveillance to the curtailing of civil liberties, from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, from hate violence on our city streets that continues to today. This is the shadow I speak about. We have come of age in the shadow of 9/11, and Balbir Uncle's death turned me into an activist. I am standing on this stage. When you walk the path of love, it is not safe. It is not easy. And there were times like a generation of Sikh and Muslim Americans who became activists with me. There were times that we wanted to give up. And the only thing that has saved me along the way is love. Because when I traveled to India to talk to the widow of Balbir Uncle, I was carrying rage in my heart. And when I asked her, what would you like to tell the people of America, I was anticipating that she would confirm my rage, my despair that was poisoning me. And you know what she said? She said, tell them thank you. When I came to Arizona for my husband's funeral, they came out in the thousands. Jewish, Christian, Muslim, it didn't matter. They cared for me. They loved me. Tell them, thank you for loving me. Our love is revolutionary. When we show up, when we cultivate love for people who do not look like us, when we look upon the faces of people who are different from us and say, sister, brother, I cannot stand by if you are suffering. I cannot live if you are dying. That love is revolutionary. It can stop cycles of violence. And what makes it especially revolutionary is when we are brave enough to look upon the faces of even those who took everything from us. Can we look upon the faces of the 19 hijackers? Can we look upon Frank Roque's face and say, brothers, you were lost. You were lost, but you were our brothers, and you committed atrocities out of a lack of love. Forgiveness. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Never forget. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is freedom from hate. Forgiveness is not the absence of justice. Forgiveness is the starting point for justice. What would have happened if our nation forgave? We would have been freed from hate. And that means we would have been free to change the root conditions for terrorism and hate violence. 15 years after 9/11, can we make that commitment today? Can we say fear and despair and cycles of violence have not served us? Hate has not served us. This election year, when more is at stake than ever before, can we make a commitment in our hearts to love? To love those who do not look like us. To love those who disagree with us. To love even those who hurt us. Can we make a commitment to revolutionary love? Yes. Yes. In the Sikh faith, we call it Chardi Kala. Say it with me. Chardi Kala.
Chardi Kala.
Chardi Kala. When our hands are closed in fists, when our hands are closed in hate, then we cannot unclench them to reach for the hand next to us. Reach for the hand next to you. Reach for the hand next to you. Free from hate and in love, and say with me, Chardi Kala.
Chardi Kala.
Relentless hope, relentless optimism, relentless love, even in darkness, even in suffering. Chardi Kala.
Chardi Kala.
Nanak Naam Chardi Kala.
Chardi Kala.
Nanak Naam
Nanak Naam.
Chardi Kala.
Chardi Kala.
Nanak Naam Chardi Kala, Tere Pane Sarvata Pala. That means we pray to the divine within us and around us. In relentless love and relentless optimism, may there be grace for all of humanity, every single one of us. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.